Hi, it's Bill Sutton.
And Jason Sutton.
Welcome to another episode of Sutton Impact Family Style. This is a football show today.
This is the AFC North preview. Obviously home to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I said, like last week,
We warned you.
the Steeler talk will be at the end. So once you hear Bengals talk, Browns talk, Ravens talk, know that everything coming after that is going to be Steeler talk, and it's going to be clearly biased.
Yes. No apologies. Letting you know right in advance.
Very biased.
Yes.
I mean, there will be facts and some interesting takes on the Steelers, but there's also, some rose-colored goggles looking at the Steelers.
So, let's start with the number 4 team in the division. My opinion is the Cleveland Browns, but I will have an arrow pointing up next to my Cleveland Browns.
See, that's where I'm at.
The arrow's pointing up. I think the draft was a good draft. You got a coach now that's smart. I think you have an owner that's willing to stay the course. Finally. And part of it is I think he's been shamed and embarrassed into it because every time they draft a quarterback, they whip out that shirt with the 15 names on it of all the quarterbacks.
Oh, yeah. Now 16 or 17. It's gotten even longer.
It's embarrassing. And I think that he doesn't want to be embarrassed anymore. So I think that embarrassment has turned him into stable, let's say. So he's got to give the course time to prove itself. But I like the draft. I'm not sure that the Notre Dame kid is the answer. I'm just not sure on that.
I think given all the picks that they had and given the potential that Deshaun Kaiser had, I think it was a great pick.
I think it was a good pick. I don't know if he's the answer.
No, but I think what you have in Cleveland right now is you have Cody Kessler, who I don't think is ever going to be the answer.
No.
I think he's career backup.
If he's, like I said, if he's the answer, I don't want to hear the question.
Right. He could be a great career backup.
Mm-hmm.
Don't turn the ball over. Our guy's out for 2 games. Just steady the ship. You have, obviously, the heist man, Brock Osweiler, who they got a second-round pick just for taking.
Yeah.
Which was unprecedented. We'd never seen an NFL team basically do what NBA
Cap
teams
room
do.
will do strange things for people.
Cap room, yeah. But this is like, you got a second-round pick for taking on $15,000 cap hit for a year.
$15 million.
$15 million, sorry. It's hard to imagine Brock Osweiler at $15 million in the same sentence, but there you go.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? I would sit here and tell you that I think he could win the job.
Oh, I think he can too. He's got all the physical skills.
I think he can win. I think now, a year under his belt, now just, the expectations are, there's no expectations now.
No.
They decided this guy can't play. So now he can go in and do what he did the first year he played for Denver.
And what people seem to always gloss over because people love Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning got benched.
Yeah, for this guy.
Brock Osweiler came in, and I think it was 8 to 10 games.
Mm-hmm.
He won 70% of those games.
Yep.
He got dinged up. Manning came back in, wrote off into history, Cinderella story.
And managed the team in the playoffs.
Right, with an amazing defense.
With an amazing defense.
Just didn't screw it up. But, I remember at the time, listening to, Bill Simmons, the ultimate Patriot homer, talking about how he was more afraid of Osweiler than he was of Manning. Because he knew that Osweiler could make throws that Manning just couldn't make at that point in his 7-time broken neck career. Yeah. Now, granted, obviously Manning won the Super Bowl. They beat the Patriots. It's all history.
And I do love him for that.
For beating the Patriots, yes.
Yes.
But that was right there. The other thing I like that the Browns are doing is they seem to be following the Cowboy formula.
Mm-hmm.
They're beefing up their offensive line.
And beefing up the defensive line.
Beefing up their defensive line. They're making sure they have... the one move that I was sort of curious about was they let Terrell Pryor go.
I was too. I think Terrell Pryor's going to have a breakout year.
He had 1,000 yards last year with Cody Kessler.
I know. And I didn't like him on the field against the Steelers every time I saw him.
No, he's terrifying.
The Steelers would sign him.
Because he's amazing with the ball in his hands in the open field.
Yeah, agree. And he's big.
He's big, he's fast, he's strong.
Yeah.
I will say this in the Browns' defense. I do know, as someone that had him on his fantasy team last year, there was a lot of rumblings about him all the time. He was benched a few different times here and there for different play. It seemed like he was somewhat of a locker room guy, but they didn't like having as part of their culture.
Yeah,
now, I don't know if it was just a personality clash, like he was just, a little bit mean,
just a little baggage there.
A little baggage there. So maybe they were just trying to, they knew they weren't going anywhere this year. Let's let him walk. We'll bring in our other guys and just roll with that. You have Corey Coleman, who you drafted in the first round a year ago, who should be healthy again this year. But like you said, their arrow does seem to be pointing up. It seems like the Browns are saying, we're going to get a nice solid offensive line in place. And as we know, I mean, the future is whatever. But next year's quarterback class is considered to be a very good quarterback class.
Mm-hmm. And they'll be drafted and they'll have a shot at him.
And they'll be shot at him.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got the Wyoming kid.
Yep.
Maybe the Oklahoma State guy.
Oh, there's like 7 or 8 good quarterbacks next year.
There's the USC kid who,
he'll go way high.
Who potentially could just say he might stay another 2 years in college, but that might all be depending on who's picking where. But the point being, the Browns look like they're building the right way. They've got a lot of assets moving forward. And, you take a chance. You throw Deshaun Kaiser in there, see if there's anything worth having, and then address the quarterback situation in this year's class.
Okay.
The next team, I would say their arrow was clearly pointing down.
The Bengals.
The Bengals. But one thing about the Bengals, because this is, I think, I don't know how many years Marvin Lewis has been the coach, but I feel like for the last...
A lot of people in Cincinnati would say too many.
Too many. But the weird thing is he's been the number one coach on the hot seat for... Forever. Pretty much after his first year.
Yeah.
He's been on the, quote, hot seat. But I feel like you can't be on the hot seat as long as he's been on the hot seat because it seems like the owner doesn't want to do anything.
No, and he's never won a playoff game.
Never won a playoff game.
He's got you to the playoffs, but he's never won a playoff game.
Right. They've lost 2 of their starting offensive linemen.
Mm-hmm.
They have a quarterback in the red gun, Andy Dalton, who needs an offensive line.
Yes.
He's not going to go out and win you games. He's the quintessential game manager.
Yes, he is.
You get a good defense. You have the skill players, your A.J. Greens, your running game. You let him not screw it up, which is what he does when he does best. But he gets easily rattled, and you lost half of your offensive line.
Yep.
You still have guys like Pac-Man Jones on the team.
Who just got suspended again. You drafted the controversial prospect in Joe Mixon. Mm-hmm.
Which seems, again, as people always joke, that the Bengals are really just a halfway house.
Hey, I remember that T-shirt I had back in my bedroom. Who day gonna arrest next? That's that team.
And that's that team. And again, you can't argue Joe Mixon's ability.
No question. But putting him on a team with Pac-Man Jones and Montez Burkett, come on. Or you just ask, you give the guy a chance to prove that he's not that guy. Don't put him with guys who are that guy.
I mean, on offense, you obviously have Mixon now.
Yeah.
Bernard, little stable running backs.
Yep.
You always have A.J. Green,
Great
who's
receiver.
just phenomenal.
I feel sorry that he's a Bengal.
I know. He's starting to remind me of Calvin Johnson. There's been a lot of Calvin Johnson in the news in the last couple of weeks.
Yep.
Where he sort of talked about his exit and the Lions forced him to get back part of his signing bonus. And how much he's like, I didn't want to stay and risk my body, risk my health.
Yeah.
To stay on a team that's never going to win anywhere and a team that won't let me leave.
That sums it up, doesn't it?
That sums it up. And I look at A.J. Green and I just sort of feel like he's sort of in that same boat.
Yeah.
And he's been dinged up a little bit lately.
He's got to be 50% of your offense.
And he's got to be 50% of your offense. Because it just... And I don't know. I mean, I feel like, when I watched them last year, it seemed like, there was some rumblings too I do listen to all the NFL gossip. And being that sports media is what it is today, you don't really have to be all that accurate. You can just say sources.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all you have to do.
That's all you have to do.
But I heard a number of times last year that sources say that teammates were not excited, or they weren't happy with Andy Dalton.
No.
They just felt like we can't win with Andy Dalton.
Yeah.
And that's your own team. Once
your team believes that, then that's it.
Because then your defense stops playing as hard.
Well, this is a team, while the arrow's trending down, our other Browns are trending up. If we sat here 6 months from now, I wouldn't be surprised if the Browns finished third, they finished fourth. I wouldn't be surprised.
I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think the Browns want that, oddly.
No.
I think the Browns want to have a nice, solid year, play close games, finish in the top 5.
Yeah. So let's go to number 2 team, the Ravens.
Yes, the Ravens.
After the Patriots, the team I hate the most.
But as you remember from our players we loved to watch the most, I did have a number of Ravens on there just because the way they play the Steelers back and forth is just...
They play great. They draft well.
They draft well. Ozzie Newsome has been an amazing
They
GM.
always draft right before the Steelers and usually drafts somebody that we would hope to be a Steeler, and he ends up being a Raven.
Yes.
That's happened numerous times.
But obviously, we benefited from originally having James Harrison.
Mm-hmm.
Then he was on the Ravens practice squad.
Mm-hmm.
And then he ended up on our squad. The Ravens are in an interesting position because they seem like they're one move away from either rebuilding or a couple moves away from contending.
Yes.
Because I look at the Ravens and I just do not see a Super Bowl contender. I see a playoff contender.
Always.
I see a team they're well coached. They've got talent. They could easily win a playoff game, but they can't win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, don't have enough.
They don't have enough. So they're in that weird position where, that they keep signing, your Eric Weddles and some of your older
Mike Wallace.
They keep signing players that can clearly help them, but help them to do what?
Yeah.
But the NFL obviously is not like the NBA. You can't just bottom out for a year or two and then be right back.
No. Takes too many pieces.
Takes too many pieces, and you never know where those pieces are coming from. So I think they're doing the best they can do. And they do have a 2-time Super Bowl champion quarterback, no matter what you think of him in general. I'm not a big fan. I mean, Flacco doesn't scare me. When I think about quarterbacks the Steelers play throughout the league, Joe Flacco does not scare me. It's always been their defense, Terrell Suggs, those kind of guys that can change the game.
Because they're going to knock one of your best players out of the game, which is going to be the equalizer.
Yeah. Or if you get Steve Smith Sr., when he was there, like one of those sort of guys open, they could do the damage. But it wasn't Joe Flacco just carving apart your defense.
Yeah.
That's a team, like, again, I could see them obviously in the playoffs with the winning a wild card, because obviously if you can't figure out where we're going with this already, who's going to win? We think is going to win this division. But I could also see them sort of bottoming out, winning 6 or 7 games, and just ending up,
I look at
12
the
or
teams in
13.
the division. I can't see them not finishing second.
Right, but they could still. I mean, I think the AFC North for the first time in a long time has a potential to be a bad division.
Okay.
Because I think all 3 of those teams that aren't the Steelers, and again, there's some bias on this, but I do like when our division is a good division. I do like when we kind of can say, well, look at the AFC North. Like, there's a reason. I mean, I shouted it from the rooftops when the Patriots got to go through 3 cream puffs for 6 wins a year.
That's why we call them the AFC least.
And then Peyton Manning got to play that just awful carousel of terrible quarterbacks in a dome every year. And
I agree.
Where the Steelers had to battle the second best team, or one of the best teams in football, in the Ravens. And then when the Ravens weren't good, the Bengals were right there.
Yep.
But I think this year we might see a change where we're only going to get one playoff team out of the AFC North.
Yeah,
I think the AFC West it's going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, without further ado, our pick for both the division, potentially the Super Bowl.
Yes. Pittsburgh Steelers. Best offense in the NFL. I think.
Potentially.
Yes. And I know that I think the Patriots were rated the number 1 offense in the USA Today the other day.
Well, they added Brandon Cooks to an offense.
Yeah.
I would say this as far as that statistic or that statement goes. When the Patriots are at their best and the Steelers are at their best, I think the Steelers' offense is slightly better.
Mm-hmm.
But consistency.
The Patriots are much more consistent.
They're much more consistent.
And that's what we got to have out of Roethlisberger this year. We got to have consistency.
Because Roethlisberger threw that, 68 touchdown game, the 500-yard game. Mm-hmm. And then when they needed him in some other games...
The 3-pick game.
The 3-pick game. Or, I mean, obviously, as a Steeler fan, I look back at that championship game against the Patriots. Patriots went down and got their field goal. Or I think they actually traded 3 and outs, and then the Patriots got a field goal. Sammy Coates was open on that deep ball. Went right through his hands.
Mm-hmm.
And granted, the Patriots, pretty much took the Steelers to the mat. It wasn't a close game.
No.
The score was a little more close than it indicated, but the Patriots pretty much had that game from that point on. But you have to wonder, with momentum being what it is, if Sammy Coates catches that ball and either runs into the end zone or is at the 20-yard line, and it's at least 3-3 at that point.
And you also, because you're thinking then, same old Patriots, here we go. And
right.
You just eat our lunch, and that's what happens. Let's not talk about that.
But let's talk about positives for the Steelers moving into this year. Offensive line, one of the best offensive lines in football.
Yes.
Now, granted, Villanueva is still holding out.
But he's restricted free agent. You got nowhere to go.
The Steelers, it's a very tough position.
Yeah.
Because the Steelers control him for the next 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
He was undrafted, spent a couple years in the Army, ended up as a tight end on somebody's practice squad. Steelers scooped him up. I think, the Steelers have the best offensive line coach in all of football.
Agree.
Does an amazing job. And Villanueva, to his credit, he's worked hard.
Mm-hmm.
He's an amazing story. But the NFL being set up with it is, with a salary cap, a hard cap. And you have a guy, this is one of the, you look at when Seattle won their Super Bowl. The reason they were able to do that is they had all these players, young players under cheap contracts, under control for a couple years.
Yeah.
And that's what the Steelers have in Villanueva. One of the best left tackles in football at this point.
Yeah.
But they have him on a ridiculously cheap deal for the next 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with the cap money the Steelers do have, I'd like to see them offer him some sort of, unforced arbitration. He's not going to get the money that he wants.
No.
But maybe
he should get better than he gets. I agree.
He's making less than $1 million a year as a starting left tackle, which anyone that knows football and numbers, that's just ridiculously low. But the other thing that's hurting him is that Jarrell Hawkins out of LSU is a left tackle. They picked him up 2 years ago in the draft. He spent his rookie year on injured reserved. But he was a guy that if you listen to all the pundits, which again...
Are pundits.
They're pundits. But that was the guy they said if he goes back to school for his junior season, he's looking at a first round. He could be a potential first round.
Mm-hmm.
And granted, I don't know how good he is.
He's been on the field yet.
Based on speculation. But based on how the Steelers seem to be handling this contract situation, I seem to feel like they feel like he could potentially step in if need be.
Yeah.
But then you still have Pouncey. DeCastro. Ramon Foster, who, according to all those Football Outsider guys, is the best guard in football.
Yeah.
Or one of the best guards in football. And Marcus Gilbert.
Yeah, the only questionable person on the Steeler offense, and I like him, is Jesse James.
Is Jesse James. Or
I like him.
Xavier Grimble.
Jesse James. Big guy. Had a good year last year. Doesn't drop the ball.
No, I think the knock on Jesse James is from a game plan's perspective, is that he's not... The one thing the Patriots can do that other teams can't do is they can line up in big personnel and bring out two tight ends who can legitimately get down and block. And they can all of a sudden audible out and spread those guys out, and they're a nightmare.
Yep, I agree.
Jesse James is nice when you spread him out.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not a liability in the run game.
Yeah.
But he's sort of a tall, lankier sort of tight end that just gets eaten alive in the run game. So he doesn't give him that flexibility. The Steelers are going to have to go more 3 wide, which brings us to our wide receivers.
Yes.
Everybody knows Antonio Brown. Best, second best, third best. You've got Beckham, AJ Green, Julio Jones, Antonio Brown. You can take your pick.
I'd have any of them.
You have any of them. Brown gets knocked because he's 5'10". He's the least physically imposing of those particular players.
With the biggest mouth.
But he puts up the biggest numbers. So
take
that for what it's worth.
Got Martavis Bryant coming back.
Who is built in the Julio Jones, AJ Green mold, where you put him on the outside, and all of a sudden you can't double Antonio Brown, triple Antonio Brown.
Yep.
Because Bryant can take the top off a defense, and unlike my friend Sammy Coates, he seemed to catch the ball.
Absolutely.
And obviously Coates had the issue with 3 broken fingers or whatever was wrong with his hand, but he never caught the ball well to begin with 2 good hands.
He was starting to remind me of Lima Swede.
Lima Swede.
Yes. But let's not go there either.
No. And then we got Eli Rogers, who put up 50 receptions in the slot last year. He's a guy that I think I'm more down on than the average Steeler fan.
I'm not down on him. I just think he's going to get lapped by Juju Schuster.
I'm hoping he gets lapped by Juju Schuster because, again, I know we keep bringing up that team, but if you're going to win the AFC and eventually win the Super Bowl, you have to go through them.
Yeah.
You look at what Eli Rogers does in the slot, and you look at what those Patriots guys do in the slot. They run a lot of those same routes. And those guys seem to just be slippery. They seem to catch the ball, and once or twice a game, they scoot out for 15, 20 more yards. And Eli Rogers, to his credit, catches the ball. But it seems like that's where he stops.
Yeah.
His his yards against after catch are not very good, and he never seemed to be that guy where you were afraid. Like,
you thought he was going to be like a kind of an Antonio Brown. He would catch the ball in stride and break him. He would just be gone.
And then,
but he never was.
No, he would catch the ball and go right down.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, I think that's something you want to get, 20% of the time out of your slot guys. That he not only makes the big catch on third down, but all of a sudden he's, scooting, scatting for 15, 20 more yards. And we just didn't see that out of him.
No.
Juju Smith-Schuster, besides being, their second-round pick this year, and a guy who put up great numbers at USC, he's bigger.
Yep.
And I think now all of a sudden, if you put, Antonio Brown on one side, Martavis Brown on the other, and you've got a 6'2", 220-pound wide receiver in the slot.
Yeah, you get some matchup problems.
And
Le'Veon Bell coming out of the backfield.
And he can block in the running game.
Yeah.
Which obviously brings us to Le'Veon Bell, who will have to play on the franchise tag this year.
Only for $12 million.
Only for $12 million. To me, this just made the most sense because the Steelers offered him almost $12 million a year, but it wasn't all guaranteed. But we're talking about a guy that has not made a single season due to either suspension or injury.
Mm-hmm.
When he is on the field, he is every bit as they said. Like, he feels like he should be paid like a running back and receiver. He should get both those salaries combined.
He's a great player that gets bad advice and is susceptible to bad influences.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I would say about him. I love him as a player. But,
But if you're the Steelers, here's a running back who has taken a lot of hits, a lot of miles, going into his 5th season. And you're offering him to be the top paid running back in football with a lot of guaranteed money. I think he was going to get enough guaranteed for his franchise tag this year and next year.
Mm-hmm.
And then he would sort of be, like everybody in the NFL.
Right. And who knows in another third year, 3 more years
Right.
of running back on him, who knows what you got.
And now if you're the Steelers, if you're willing to pay him that much guaranteed the first 2 years anyway, you can just franchise him this year, franchise him next year,
and
see where you're at.
Yeah.
Because his new backup running back has the top selling jersey in football after Tom Brady.
I was very surprised by that. It's a good story, though.
It's a good story. Those who don't know, James Conner played at Pitt, was diagnosed with cancer. He was on the field getting treatment at different points. Like, he just wanted to be there so badly. And he still put up 20 touchdowns in his last year.
Mm-hmm.
So he can actually ball, too. The one thing I would say that people have said sort of to analyze the numbers on his jersey sales is that those jersey sales are from Dick's Sporting Goods, which is which is based in Pittsburgh, and it's a mostly northeastern company.
Yeah.
So, and you have him playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are one of the top jersey sales every year, regardless.
Yeah.
So again, it's still impressive numbers for a 3rd round draft pick that isn't going to be the starter. To sell that many jerseys is pretty insane. But when you add in the fact that Dick's is based in Pittsburgh, it's a northeastern company. He's got the incredible cancer survivor story, which always inspires people. Mm-hmm. And the fact that if you're a Steelers fan, you probably already own 5 jerseys.
Yeah.
And every year you're looking for a new jersey.
So there you go. And Juju Schuster might be too big of a name on the back for somebody.
Right. Which brings us to, I guess, technically the biggest question mark on the Steelers.
Can they stop Tom Brady?
No, Ben Roethlisberger, I think.
Oh, Ben Roethlisberger? I think he's got to come out and just be consistent. That's all it is. He's got more talent. He's got to be consistent.
But he hasn't been consistent for 3 seasons.
No. But I think it's coming to the end. They've invested enough money around him. He's got to realize he's got a shot this year, maybe next year. That's probably it.
Right.
And he had a shot last year and didn't take advantage of it.
No. But I'm just wondering if, obviously I don't know him personally or the coaches, so I can't ask these questions, but has he looked at what Manning does in the offseason? Has he looked at what Brady continues to do in the offseason and made any sort of changes to what he does to see if to take it, like, when people are constantly beating you, do you look at what they do and say, well, if he's doing that, then I've got to do this? Or do you even look to your own team as we get ready to switch to defense and look at a guy like James Harrison?
Yeah.
And look at everything that he does to be able to stay on the field. Spending hundreds of $1,000s on a personal acupuncturist and masseuse and hyperbaric chamber that travels with him. Like, is he doing everything he possibly can to take his game to the next level?
No, maybe we need to have James Harrison kick his ass and make him do that.
Right. But as you pointed out before we got to Roethlisberger, it is stopping Tom Brady.
Yeah, that's the issue. Can you stop? Is your defense improved enough that you have become elite?
I don't know if elite is what they've become, but I thought last year they played really well, especially those last 8 games, and that was after they lost.
Cam Hayward out and 2 rookies starting.
Three rookies starting.
Yeah, there's a lot of reason to think positive there. Then you add T.J. Watt to that mix. Couple in another corner. Not related to us.
Not related, but Cam Sutton. We're hoping he does well because it'd be nice to have a Sutton jersey. It's not a Sutton jersey. I still have unwavering faith in Sinquez Golston coming back somehow.
Don't see it.
I know it's a long shot, but it'd be nice if he somehow could pull it off. But I think what you have in the Steelers, your front 7 is win healthy. And unfortunately for the Steelers, that is a huge issue.
Always.
More so, I know you could say that about every team, but there are certain teams where health has just reared its ugly head slightly more often. And the Steelers are that team with their defense. Because when Jerron Hargrave, the Gravedigger, Stephon Tuitt, Cam Hayward, you look at a healthy Bud Dupree when he came back last year, was an absolute terror on the outside. Shazier, fastest linebacker in the NFL, and when he plays, he's fantastic. And he's pointed out himself all off season. He's like, I need to be able to stay on the field. He's like, the best ability is availability. And he gets that. But can he actually sustain that?
Okay, and then we have to look at the loss of Lawrence Timmons.
Right, but we've lost Lawrence Timmons. I love Timmons. I think he's been a fantastic Steeler. But I'm confident that Vince Williams and maybe even the redheaded monster and Mankiewicz could step up and take what he did. He was a liability in pass coverage.
Yeah.
And he'd clearly slowed down a little bit.
Dolphins wrote a big check.
He went
for the money, which is very unlike great Steeler players.
Well, he's in that weird position where he's won a couple Super Bowls.
Mm-hmm.
He's getting older. Mm-hmm. And if you have a team willing to give you that big check, take the big check. I think James Harrison, based on all of his off-season moves, and I watch him on Instagram pushing 1,800-pound carts across the field, looks like an absolute beast. I think T.J. Watt, from everything we hear, looks like he'll at least be a rotational player who can contribute. Which, again, for a Steeler rookie is incredible. I think Sean Davis made excellent strides towards the end.
Yeah.
To be a starter. Troy Polamalu didn't start for the Steelers defense as a rookie.
No.
And part of that was the talent that was already on the team. But part of it was he just couldn't get on the field.
Right.
And again, with Sean Davis, part of it is the talent that was on the field ahead of him. But
yeah.
He played really well, and he played even better towards the end of the season. Artie Burns led the team in interceptions with 3, which isn't great, but I thought he looked really solid.
Really well.
And he made some rookie mistakes, but it's to be expected. As you mentioned, they added Sutton. They have Goldston. They still have Willie Gay, even at 32.
Mm-hmm.
They signed Sensabaugh, who has started for both the Giants and the Titans, and at the very least, he looks like a 3rd or 4th corner that can come in and be solid.
Yeah, good nickel back.
You have Ross Cockrell, who
unappreciated,
but at the same time, you have to wonder how unappreciated he really is, because the Steelers basically left him to hang out there.
I think Tom Brady appreciated him.
And I know the numbers, according to all the Football Outsiders and all the numbers people, they love Ross Cockrell. They feel like he's incredibly underrated.
Yes.
But the Steelers had a 26-year-old starting in at quarter with NFL starting experience. They put a 4th-round tender on him.
Nobody took him.
Any team could go offer their 4th-round pick for a 26-year-old corner with starting NFL experience.
Nobody took him.
Now, granted, the Steelers probably would have matched any sort of but you could probably, that says a lot about what the Steelers are thinking.
Yeah. Well, I think there's only 3 things that keep the Steelers out of the Super Bowl. Okay, first one, marijuana. Okay, go look at your players, look at your past.
Your big B's, Bell and Bryant.
Yeah, look at that. That's 1. Number 2, T. Suggs. Knocking one of our players out and playing the Ravens twice a year.
Well, lately it's been Vontaze Burfict.
Yeah. Somebody in division taking out one of our players. So injury. And then 3 is Tom Brady.
I would agree, obviously, Brady. Number 1 because he's Tom Brady and Bell. I'll put the Brady-Belichick combo.
Brady, Belichick, Lucifer.
Yeah.
That's the three-headed monster.
The three-headed monster. I think my number 2, as I sort of mentioned earlier, like I just feel like Roethlisberger's got to do something different that he's done. Like the same Roethlisberger that's been there the last 3 years can't be there. And again, he's won 2 Super Bowls, he's been to a third. Maybe he does see that if he puts it all on the table this year, that this team really legitimately has a chance to win and he could go out on top. Because I feel like if the Steelers did win, I don't think he'd come back.
I think he'd go out. He'd be a 3-time Super Bowl winner. I think he'd go out.
I think he'd go out on top.
Yep.
And again, I think all the other things, I think the offensive line has continued to be good. I think hopefully Connor can be somebody that can take a few series away from Bell in a positive way.
Hopefully.
Where Bell can maybe, not be on the field every single play so that he's not on the field for the playoff game when they need him. Because again, he went out early in that Patriots game and he was already hurt to begin with.
Yeah.
And he makes that offense,
he changed it. If he's not in there, that offense is two-dimensional.
Because he's arguably their second best, he's their best running back by far.
And their second best receiver.
And their second best receiver. And on
last
some
year,
level...
Last year he was anyhow.
Yeah. And without that legitimate tight end threat, he's kind of their most important receiver. Because, Antonio Brown is always going to take double coverage. He's going to be the guy you're keying on. So 2 can be the guy that steps up. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All that being said, I know you put some money on the Steelers to win it all.
Yep.
As a Steelers fan, I'd be stupid not to think the Steelers were going to win it all just because...
That's who we are.
That's who we are. So for those of you that stayed with us through all of our Steeler talk, thank you.
Next week we should do the AFC least.
The AFC least.
And I can tell you that I am going to be a huge Dolphins fan this year. Hoping we get at least one whipping of the Patriots through the Dolphins.
Well, I have not looked at the schedule, but hopefully they play in Miami in September. Because as people that live in South Florida, we can tell you...
Yes, it's brutal to play.
It's brutal to play here.
Yeah. But for some reason, I think because it's Belichick, Lucifer, and Brady, the game will probably be in December in South Florida. I didn't look at the schedule yet either.
I'm just assuming.
That's what I would think would be done.
And again, not that it matters if they drive it. We need to...
In fact, I think I would not be surprised if the Patriots had to play in New England in December or January, and the Patriots played in Miami at the same time, like 2 or 3 weeks apart. That's what I would guess. I'll have to go look at the schedule. I actually have Dolphin season tickets, but I donate every year to charity. But I have not looked at my Dolphins tickets yet, so I don't know.
You don't know. Well, until next week. Hopefully we're going to be working out some technical kinks as we look to do our show via Skype.
Via Skype from 2 cities.
From 2 cities. So hopefully we'll be able to work that out. And thank you again for listening.
Peace out.